Okay, welcome back to the Jiu Jitsu Mindset. It's Pete Daly, and sadly, I'm a little under the weather today, so my voice is shaky. And Professor Lucas is away improving the world, teaching and coaching, and so it's just going to be me today. It might be I need a little bit more submission coffee to straighten out my health, and it still remains a non-performance enhancing drug. If you want to get that or sign up for our mailing list, go to the jujitsumindset.com and you can find us there. We were talking before the conversation started that we recorded just how lucky I've been to talk to all kinds of amazing people. And this week continues to be the divine smiling on me, blessing me. We have a great conversation ahead. So with me today, I have two professors, Professor Alexis and Professor Gustavo Fonseca. Thank you, brothers, for coming and spending time with me.
Thank you for having us.
So, generally, I like to start with the conversation of where you might have gone if you didn't head down the road of being dedicated to jiu-jitsu. And if I did my research right, you guys might have even given up Hawaii to come down to Southern California.
Mhm.
That's a big decision to leave such a beautiful place. And I love Southern California. Santa Monica is my favorite place. You could find me swinging on those rings and hanging out with the gymnasts for a lot of my youth, which is in the rear view mirror, I have to tell you. But could you tell me a little bit about, if you not picked this path, what path might you guys have picked?
Yeah, you want to go
I
out?
think you used to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I remember reading your messaging us about the podcast, and I saw that question, and I thought a lot about it. And it's interesting because when I started jujitsu, I was actually wanting to go back to school and potentially go to become like a high school basketball coach. I thought maybe I could first do the path of what my basketball coaches did, be like a physical education teacher, maybe even work with special needs kids, and then I'll also be able to coach. I played a lot of basketball when I was younger. And then I stopped playing after high school. And in my kind of like early to mid 20s, I was like, you know what, man, I think it'd be cool. I really want to be able to coach and help kids. And because my coaches had such an awesome impact on me when I started doing jujitsu.
Okay.
But then I got really into jujitsu and I saw how fun that was. And so I just dedicated all my time to jujitsu and just switched paths. But that would be the short answer is I knew I wanted to help kids and I wanted to be involved with athletics.
Yes.
So as I got into jujitsu, even as a white belt, I thought, man, this would be cool to eventually become a coach and help
Right.
coach jujitsu, even though I barely knew anything at that time. But I just shifted my focus.
Kind of a love at first sight type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking to Professor Beto Villanova in an episode back. You guys may know him. He's a little further up the road in Camarillo, I think. But he was the same way. He stepped on the mat and he knew not only did he wanted to be a practitioner, but he wanted to coach people. And for me, I'm so grateful for your disposition because particularly among boys and young men, the coach plays such a critical role in the development of young men because it ends up in many instances having that sort of fatherly connection without it being the father. So sometimes the coach can say things that the dad can't because there's not that tension there.
Absolutely.
And so I've seen that repeated time after time throughout my whole life. And my coaches like yours, I had some that they had a massive impact on me.
Yeah. I remember even as a young kid, like my mom worked a lot. My stepfather was working all the time. So my coaches would come and pick me up at my house. And they were like so impactful. And I just always thought to myself, man, this is what I want to do. I knew the feeling that I received from them and I wanted to do the same for other kids.
Yeah,
Whatever tough times, doing whatever they're doing and being practical in their lives.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Professor Alexis?
So like going back to like the other questions, it's so blind of some of the questions you were asking earlier, but
Sure.
for instance, for me, when I first stepped on the mat, I was a few years after my brother. My brother was already training. He even tried to get me into it, but I was like busy with other stuff. And wasn't really the time for me. But when I moved to Oahu, 'cause I was living on Big Island, I moved to Oahu and I was looking for like something, activity. Like at that point in my life, I didn't really have any like type of drive or like any type of like future focus. But when I stepped on the mat, I was like, man, this is it.
This is it.
And it was like from white belt, like few months with like into training, I was like, man, I want to start a gym. I want to run this path all the way through. And I think part of that is, I don't know if you know a little bit of like our history, but when we were younger, I was like really heavy into meditation.
Okay.
And when I was younger, I lived in in an ashram. I lived in a temple,
Wow.
and along with my brother as well. And man, I lived like a monk. And I
Okay.
think part of one of the things that really drawed me to jujitsu is after I left like that ashram meditation center like situation. I think I was looking for like discipline and mentorship. And so when I found jujitsu, it was like a connection because those connections that I made with the people that I was under at the meditation center was like a very like endearing, like special relationship I had, like mentorship, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, like the discipline of meditation as well was something that I was looking for as well after like got a job and was just doing just the everyday thing. So what I found in jiu-jitsu was like needed connection because discipline, martial arts, it re-sparked that because I was looking for something that I can be disciplined, something I could do every day, something that I can just keep me motivated. Like before jujitsu, I wasn't really working out after that. Like I was like not really doing too much physical stuff. But then I found jujitsu. It rekindled that discipline, finding mentorship, moving from Hawaii to San Diego first because I was training with Andre.
Okay.
Having Andre as like a mentor was amazing. He was pretty special. Like having conversations with him, like on and off the mats, was something that was like very iconic, like coming up. And of course, having a similar
Yeah.
relationship with the brothers, the Mendes brothers as well, like very like a gem.
Yeah. So I'm curious because it seems like both of you are attracted to having an impact on others and being that positive influence in a person's lives that keep them moving towards their best selves. And then you've also had the experience of people being a North Star for you or somebody that people who have given you a roadmap to, hey, here's a way towards your best self as well. When you think about the context of jujitsu compared to, say, a team sport or even the ashram, in terms of what's going on between people, what do you think's at the root of like why jujitsu has that impact on you? And then if it links back to your meditation life and your spiritual life, that's an interesting connection to me. So could you describe like how that comes about or what it is that's common in jujitsu that was common in the discipline of the ashram?
Yeah, for me to keep it like very general, like I think the connection is the relationships that we have with people, the impact and like the inspiration, right? Man, like we tend to follow people like we're inspired by people who are good examples, people who we want to be like. And I think that goes with kind of anything, right? Like following any path, like you need to be inspired. And bringing it back to jujitsu, man, I was so inspired by Andre Galval. Like I remember like just bringing it back to jujitsu. You see the videos, YouTube video. At that time, it wasn't like heavy social media. It was more just literally, I don't even believe Atos had a platform at that time. Maybe they did. But I remember just seeing videos and just seeing them like on Budo videos on YouTube and stuff. And man, it'd be cool to train with them, but then to see it in the background and to actually do it and to be side by side, like doing what they're doing was so inspirational. And I think in life, like we all want to be like inspired because that's what keeps us going. Like you're not inspired, and it's hard to find like our drive. So connecting it back to like my spiritual life, like I was inspired. I wanted to seek something that I never, that was just something different than just the normal life. So giving myself to like spiritual life for a few years was very important. Obviously, I was inspired by those I was around. People were very taking the meditation practice very serious. And so for me, I knew too, like the path that I wanted to take in order to become like a good instructor or a good jujitsu practitioner or a good competitor, like I had to do what those guys who were successful were doing.
Right.
And so like having advice or just having them right in front of me, put the work in and seeing them every day on the mats. Man, I can't remember a time where he wasn't traveling. The Mendes brothers, like Guillermo Mendes,
Right.
that he wasn't traveling. He wasn't after counter. Sometimes he'd be doing seminar, fly in the night before and then be there Monday morning, coming back from like Australia or something. So like seeing that kind of stuff's like so inspiring because you see what the result of working hard, doing that stuff in the background that people don't see, being there, answering your phone calls, like being a good example of what,
Yeah, it's a
you know,
discipleship of sorts, right? And
yeah,
he's dedicated in a way. How about you, Professor Gustavo? What do you have that similar connection between your spiritual discipline and what became not your physical personal discipline, but then it also becomes your economic life and your professional life, and that's a lot of things all to be tied in together.
Yeah, back to like how we were describing it originally, even with the sport, right? Like even though jujitsu is an individual practice, it's still very much so a team sport, I believe. Man, with the teammates that I had trained over the years, especially the years I was at AOJ from 2012 to 2020, man, the all the hard training, all the sacrifice and everything that everybody did just to be able to set up their life so that they can train full time the way they did. Same thing like when I was playing basketball or when I was in the temple. I think, like my brother mentioned before, is seeing who's leading the way and following that example and using that as inspiration,
Right.
being accountable for yourself. And also to the compound effect, right? Every day, even the days where you feel really even the days where you feel not as motivated, or maybe you just competed one weekend and you had a really bad session. And you're like, oh my God, man, I feel horrible. But just keeping it going every day. I think that those are the things that I've learned over the years from basketball, from being in the temple, and also with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that the spiritual connection has always been something that I have thought about, and the theme that for me that comes up in my conversations on this podcast and in my own sort of perspective is that notion of trust. Like I've played team sports before and rely on a teammate to do their job, so to speak, but it's a different type of trust than like being in a dangerous situation where you still know that you can tap. That's come up time in the podcast, which to me has a spiritual implication where we can sharpen ourselves with each other to a fine blade, so to speak, without necessarily cutting each other. And the other part that I've been interested in is the notion of jujitsu as the gentle art. And what I mean by that is, I think that I've been more impressed by people who have beaten me, so to speak, with effortless movement
Mhm.
than people who've out muscled me. Like when I have been rolling with somebody and they move me and I can't even figure out what just happened, or I know when someone grabs me and muscles me over, but if somebody does so with an elegance, that's a level of mastery that's beyond my own. And
Mhm.
listen, I'm no great jujitsu practitioner. When I talk about mastery, to me, that my bar is pretty low because I'm no world champion out there. But that being said, I do recognize the difference between rolling with people who the technique is being expressed in a way that the technique is speaking to me rather than the person's muscles and all the rest of it. And in a spiritual discipline, my experience has been I've always been more attracted to people looking to inspire rather than push you in a certain direction, like to draw you towards something rather than to say, if you don't do these things, here's the consequences. And that for whatever reason, those things have a relationship in my mind. So I'm attracted to teachers that can inspire me and move me in a direction rather than those that come and just whoop my ass until all the rest of it. Given that you guys had discipline in your earlier lives, and that seems to be that you came to jiu-jitsu with athletic talent, was it something that spoke to your bodies naturally? Did you step on the mats and, oh, I understand this, and you progress quickly? Or did you have to, like for me, I came with it with a body that had a lot of years on it already, so I didn't have quite the tools of my youth, but it also just didn't, it's taking me a long time to get my body and brain connected. So I'm curious for you guys, was it just first love at first sight and you were good? Or like love at first sight and
So,
Man, I'm still trying to bro, like almost 20 years of doing this.
right?
But man, I love what you were explaining earlier because I feel the exact same way. And this is something that inspires me every day as I get up and feel excited. Cause I truly feel excited. Like this morning, I really woke up and I was like, man, dude, I can't wait to go on the mat and help my guys and train with my guys. And I've been thinking about this a lot too, because being a competitor, sometimes, especially in sport jujitsu, and this is not for everybody, but for myself, I don't compete anymore, but when I did, sometimes you do have the tendency of should be your focus on just winning this specific position. And sometimes you do tend to incorporate a little bit of like more muscle and strain rather than the elegance of what you're mentioning before, or like really trying to connect the movements together. But I think what I'm trying to do in my later years of now studying jujitsu is really try to find that balance of like, how can I really try to use like good technique and not muscle, and just really find those pathways. And it's something that's, I think, the best part of jujitsu, because man, when you're able to like really hit this like clean connection and understand the pathways, you're like, okay, I'm addressing these frames. I'm seeing the angles. I'm stuck in this specific control, say the paths and situation. And then you're like, I remember a long time ago, one of my really good training partners and friends, John Alves, something simple. He would always say, don't fight against the frame. Like easy, but the way he said it, just like it was, man, hey, we see him. And so where these other top level guys are able to find their pathways is because they're not fighting force against force. And again, making that like spiritual and jujitsu connection very similar, right? If you force yourself to try to be connected and, okay, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna breathe this.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself with like really trying to see and breathe and see the whole picture, I think this is better. And yeah, so
Makes perfect sense. And the holistic nature of it, I believe in strengthening the body. I believe like all of us, right? Like we want to be, healthy and strong, but the expression of strength in a technique just amplifies your strength, right? So, right.
hard, even with elegantly getting past, but now you got to hold big hand, please, right? Or if you're going,
Yeah. They seem to
so
work
that's
together to
important.
me.
Yeah,
Like I don't have a naive perspective on there's advantages to being strong. There is. And that the technique should trump it. But at the same time, equally stated, the person who's taken the time to make their body stronger can express that elegance more forcefully. And
sure.
which to me, as I listen to you guys speak, you seem to have that kind of holistic disposition of the more things work together in harmony, the more powerful the expression of the technique, the more powerful the expression of the human being, either like your foundation of understanding, hey, a quiet internal life can allow you to be calm in the midst of the chaos and the samsara, whatever we might like to call
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah.
So in competition, Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until we get hit in the face. And I feel like people who have learned to recognize the lack of calmness within them are quicker to get calm regardless of what's going on. And I remember my first white belt competition, just trying to like breathe and just not to be out of gas within the first 20 seconds, just because of I was clenched and nervous. And you're talking about a guy in his 50s, right? Nobody cared whether I won or lost. The only one nervous about this match was me. And I was fighting another old ball guy too. So from the same class, there was no consequence to it. But I've taken that, like being in tumultuous situations and having to do my best to calm down into other parts of my life as a business person, a father, a husband, brother, all of those different things. Anyway, thank you for that.
Yeah. And then just to go back up real quick, just wrap up before my brother can chat too, is so in the beginning, it was right, not easy or natural at all for
Okay.
person. Yeah,
That's encouraging.
Yeah, so it wasn't, man. Again, what I said about earlier about the compound effect, like that daily, just because that's what we did at the temple. Right? Every day we did the same things. We woke up at 4 a.m. We took cold showers. We had like this different meditation practice. We could work. We did the same kind of work we worked on a farm. Or we did the same thing. We had time where we read scriptures, and we did the same stuff every day. And in the beginning, it was very hard, but the more I like practice and stay disciplined, and I still practice it to this day, it became easier. And then I was able to retain information. Same thing with jujitsu. It was like really rough for me. And then as over the years, and still now, as I mentioned earlier, my perspective changed.
Right.
Because even what I thought, even after training for 15, 16 years, which I thought was, oh, okay, I have a good understanding of jiu-jitsu. I'm really, no, I'm just trying to remember. And like, there's still so much more for me to learn, and still so many mistakes I'm making, but trying not to beat myself up about it, and then understand that, okay, man, let's see the silver lining. Let's see where we can grow. Let's see that everything's an opportunity, right?
Yes.
To get better and to grow and to give and be of service to others. So that's how I see things. And yeah, so in the beginning,
That's encouraging. I bet that there are other people that are encouraged to hear that, like, as well. And not giving up is the primary virtue of
that's
students.
literally
Just
all it is. That's
just
it.
don't stop.
All it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I've lost so many tournaments. I literally didn't win one tournament, and I competed quite a bit.
Right.
I didn't win one tournament until purple belt.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then once prime, then I found a good rhythm, trained my professors, and I was starting to win a lot in my divisions.
Right.
And then still would lose and win and lose and win and lose. And my goal was, because I started a little later in my mid-20s. And I always thought, okay, my major goal, one of my top goals, of course, besides having an academy one day or like being able to teach and make jiu-jitsu my career, was to be a black belt, like masters world champion.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, that's something I think maybe I could do. But then I would see, I was like, oh man, there's like Casino and all these stuff guys. I was like, oh my God, bro, this is going to be hard, man. There's so many really good guys even in that division.
Sure.
So I thought, man, it should be really hard. But once I was able, I just kept putting in the compound work year after year. Even as a purple belt, my professor gave me the great advice of always looking and preparing for the black belt world championship, even as a purple belt. And I remember him saying this to the juvenile blue belts, because I got to be around like Anandelko and all these really good guys when they were blue belts. And he would always tell them too, like, start focusing on the black belts. Watch what those guys are doing. See how those guys are competing. And so everything they were doing from juvenile blue belt all the way, now you see these guys they're the goats.
Yeah, yeah. And when I listen to you talk, for me, not everybody sees this, I think, from the same disposition, but the priestly life of sorts, the soldierly, being a soldier, being an athlete, being a scholar, that notion of compound effect, I think, plays out in all of those different disciplines. And while they look like they're so different from one each other, my mom's one of our country's great poets. She's
Cool.
yeah, she's just, in fact, the National Endowment of the Arts, the American Academy of Poets just
Wow.
recognized her as one of the poet laureate fellows in this country and had a big honor. Mom, like you, she got up every morning at 4:30 when we were young, and she wrote and she wrote and she wrote. And now she's in her 70s and she's getting the accolades, but it's the compound of day in and day out for the course of 60 years of having an art that brings her to where she is today. So it's encouraging to hear that, hey, the road in the beginning wasn't clear that, oh, this is smooth sailing from here to world champion, to for those of us that are out there struggling to do the basics, even however many years in.
Yeah.
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 How about for you, Alexis? Was it,
As far as like when I first started,
yeah, was it a natural,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, I get this. This is all I gotta do is," you were
I think it definitely wasn't easy, but I think like having a brother that was into
yeah,
the
that's,
team
yeah.
sport made it like, okay, like I saw him work. He was on another island at that time. He was training with BJ Penn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I found like a little local gym on a raw road.
Mhm.
And it was just a lot of like local Hawaiians, and they're just a little rough, but like great people. Like a lot of big guys.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, like when you're like, I knew it was going to be tough, but it was something that I was like, like, man, I was inspired, like good people to be around. And it definitely prepped me when I started jujitsu to want to pursue it even more.
Mhm.
And I was there for a few years, and definitely wasn't easy, but I knew I just needed to show up. I
Yeah.
knew as long as I showed up. But one thing that, as you guys were talking, one thing that really like spoke in my mind was that my view of jujitsu was so different
Oh, yeah,
when
yeah.
I first started jujitsu. Like even the first few years, I think it was more about like winning, show
Yeah.
a little bit of I want to be like one of the better dudes, like that kind of feeling. And seeing it more like an end, like seeing it as an end. You know, when I get to this point, or when I get this age, or when I get this belt. But I think now that I've gone through a lot, because your personal life continues when you're doing
That's right.
jujitsu.
Yeah.
Finding for me, like I've had stuff I was dealing with personally while I was going through the whole jujitsu path. So one thing, there's two things that are here. And one thing was finding that balance between your personal life and jujitsu,
Right.
but also seeing like growth in jujitsu as like the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the goal,
seriously.
is to
Yeah.
grow with jujitsu, and to not see it as like this level, like I got like ultra clear. Like I guess like
Yeah.
I feel like it's now that I'm alongside my brother, like I'm always inspired by him because I see that he's always studying jujitsu, and it's inspired me to study jujitsu. Even as a black belt, we see sometimes black belt as the goal, right? But then people don't have goals after black belt, or they're not really inspired either to continue to train or to learn and gain more knowledge or understanding. But I think the goal should be growth, right?
Yes.
Like should always be like, even when we're rolling and like our mindset, like we sometimes look at jujitsu as like this. When you're sparring with someone, it's more or less, like I want to win. But I think when you're in this like more like growth mindset, you're thinking about things you can do to grow. And then there's this exchange that you have. I love when someone's like really competitive with me, and we're both equally competitive, and there's this exchange of like good energy and you're both just going for it. But then there's times where you either fight someone either more above your level or lower level. You have to find that gauge that makes this exchange possible. Okay. Because man, like if I'm fighting someone, like if I'm sparring with one of my students that I want to just chill or, feel like demoralized or make him feel like I'm better than him. Like I want to create this positive exchange that we're both growing. Like when I roll with someone new, I try to do more new stuff, or I try to create these situations that make them feel like we're connecting. Because man, like it's without the community of jiu-jitsu, like it's not really anything. But like some people are like, they think of jiu-jitsu like being at the latest school with the latest techniques. These guys are doing the latest things. But man, I see some guys that are like old school guys, don't do anything new, but they have amazing communities. And I think without that community, without those good people, like bringing it back to being inspired, no, it's a jiu-jitsu gym is not really anything without community,
Yeah,
without
right.
energy and being inspired.
Yeah, come for the jujitsu, stay for the people for most of us. I think that if your mindset is one of growth, you will be doing different things. And if your mindset is one of, I want to win, then you're going back to what has worked in the past because that's your familiar territory.
100%.
As opposed to, okay, if the outcome is not something that I'm attached to, then it's okay for me to go and explore other things because my intent is to have a larger vocabulary rather than if you only got a hammer, then everything else is a nail. And so to have all those things. Also, I think that I was watching Hodger Gracie's results of the tournament in 2009, and he wins every single match he's in by a cross collar choke. And I was listening to him talk about that. I didn't understand and refine, understand's the wrong word, but I hadn't had that movement refined until many years after I was a black belt. So I think that combination of, do I understand this position and the need to repeat, and then the need to grow, which is to, because I think you find metaphor in from one position to the next, like being good at one thing, I think, but trying other things makes you better across the board. Whereas if you're only looking to win and you won by a triangle, you're always going to look to go back to what has worked in the
100%.
past. When it comes to competition, given both your vast sort of experiences there, I have two questions. One, do you think that competition is for everybody or should it be reserved for people with a certain disposition? And then always curious to know, if I ask you, like, what's your most memorable fight, what comes to mind? Because it may not be, for some folks, it may not be the championship fight. It might be, I was a blue belt and I rolled with whoever and all the rest of it. So how about those two questions?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the first one one more time was
Yeah, the
the
first one's just in terms of the role of competition in developing your jujitsu. Do you think everybody should give it a crack or should it just,
So yeah, I think man, it all depends. Like for myself, because you all go up different. Everybody has different way to do so, how they approach, or the reasons why they come to jiu-jitsu too. So I think I would encourage it. I think competition is great because I think it's always good to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And like we talked about growth, like what better rate growth? Like put yourself in situations that are challenging because no matter the outcome, you're going to have the opportunity to grow in some kind of way. So I think that competing at least a couple times
yeah,
is really important. And that's why sometimes even at our academy, what we like to do is not all the time, but we do like to create that atmosphere. So after class, sometimes what we'll do is we'll have a circles. Sometimes I don't call it this, but some people call it like, oh no, the circle of death. You know? $50 that. It's just that opportunity to put yourself a little bit in that uncomfortable situation without having to register for a tournament.
Yeah.
You're in front of everybody. It's 1 minute.
Joe, is that
And we'll create specific scenarios, whether okay, last minute of the match,
Nice.
or we'll do like a specific situation. Okay, starting from the whatever single leg or something like this. And so I think this is big for people because again, it's different, bowling when everybody else is rolling and no one's watching. But if you're self-conscious,
Exactly. I consider that like a stress inoculation. We're creating stress to inoculate you for the being able to handle the more stress. And so that I think that's a great
and
idea.
it's funny that this question is actually connect with my answer will connect because my professor used to do that with us, Professor Gee. And man, did I did it. I did not like it because sometimes ego were getting away and sometimes maybe a lower belt or someone else, whatever the
Yeah.
case, you put in your mind, oh, I should beat this guy, but then you get destroyed by this guy, whatever the case may be. But he would do this with us and man, we would do it all the time. And I remember a very memorable situation. I was thinking of another one, but now I thought of this one because this connects with this situation. Because he used to do that all the time with us, there was I think it was my quarterfinal match in my in the Masters Worlds, 2017. And there was this guy who I might have been down an advantage or something, and there was literally like 15 or 20 seconds up, 30 seconds up, and I went back in my mind like, wait, I've been here before, okay? And it was so weird because usually there's this anxiousness, right? But man, I feel like this was the one time where I was truly in the zone. It was sounds weird, but it's like the Matrix. Everything just slowed down. It was like, there's 20 seconds left. And there was this anxious, but then everything did just right.
No,
And like, I started talking to myself, thinking, this is super easy. You've been here before. You know what to do. This is what we trained so many times, those rounds in the middle. And all we're going to do is off balance this guy, feel where his weight is, and we're either going to submit him or we're going to sweep. And then I built it. And I just remember I did this beautiful, like what you're talking about before. And it didn't feel forceful. It was this graceful overhead sweep.
beautiful.
Dude, it was like a buzzer beater. And I remember seeing these guys on the sideline. It was so cool because our professor, Hopper, was there. Keep our brother.
Yeah.
Even Andre Galvao was there too because he was like, oh my God, so cool. And I was like, oh my God. So that was a pretty memorable. I would say that one, but honestly, another memorable one too. I'm sorry, talking about the here, but I thought this really cool guy, Ramananda.
Okay.
He's really good. I think he just recently won black belt masters as well. But he won as an adult too. He was a brown belt world champion, a blue belt world champion, really good. And I fought him in the finals. And it was cool because it was during the time when Hapa and Cobrillo were still like competing against each other. So Hapa was in my corner, Cobrillo was in this guy's corner. So it was like so epic. It was the first time that I ever was in the finals at a like world's competition. It was a purple belt Masters World, Master One Worlds. And he had just won. He had won adult worlds. So I was like, oh man, dude, like I'm fighting against this guy who won the adult world Pacific division, but in the Masters. And man, it was really epic. And to me, it was memorable. I lost, but just that feeling of
Right.
I felt like Rocky.
The big stage.
Yeah, remember Rocky? I go toe with Apollo. It's all I want. Like he didn't even care about winning. He's just
Right. Yeah, the champ.
I just want to know I belong here. And
Yes.
I didn't felt the same way because the previous year I lost in the first round. Like I said, I had went through a lot of losses. So just getting to the finals was like amazing. And that was a very memorable experience.
That's so
I
awesome.
remember being like stoked. My professors, I remember, man, they helped me so much because they had like high expectations because they saw how hard I worked. They should award. For me at the time, I just was like, I don't know, and maybe this is the wrong mindset, but I was happy, man. I was like, dude, I went toe to toe with one of the best guys in my divisions. Like last year, I lost the first round. This year, I'm in the finals and fought pretty decent. I made a mistake, but I know it gave me confidence that one day I will be a world champion. And that was
that's amazing. And I think for my mind that I appreciate the notion that some people are like, hey, the outcome you got, we'll never say whatever. But for me, if the notion is continuous development, then you're like, okay, from this moment, I have learned these things and it will serve me well for the next thing. Then I think not this position of being joyful in the face of, okay, yes, I would have preferred another outcome, but I can release that preference into, this was an amazing school for the moment.
Yes.
And that notion of belonging, I think about that. Particularly, I roll with these giants. These guys are all stronger than me. I'm among, if not the oldest person in the mix. And I try not to let that affect my disposition because I'm like, okay, but my compounding of time after time, I belong on these mats with these
Yeah.
guys. And that doesn't mean that I have to win, but I belong here. And it seems to me that incrementally bigger and bigger stage that you experienced then prepared you to win at the biggest stage because you knew, okay, I didn't arrive here by accident. I arrived here because of all these years of grinding it out.
And I just got this like epiphany now that what was really cool too is I remember, like I said earlier, when my professors were like, oh, man, it's really cool because I feel like they at the time believed in me more than I believed.
Ah, how nice. Yeah, yeah.
So I was just like, man. And then that felt me. And I saw that a little later. I'm like, dude, these guys really, whatever. They saw that like my hard work will pay off one day. You know what I mean? Where I didn't see it at the time. At the time, I was just like, dude, I'm happy because man, like last year, I didn't make it anywhere near the podium. And here I am, like just one, advantage away from winning it.
Yeah. And that feeling of people showing up for you, believing in you is so important.
Yeah.
And
Those guys still.
yeah. I feel like you can handle more of what life will throw at you, knowing that you can go and spend time with these people that are on your side. I think 'cause not everybody gets that. I think about that with my family. I have a beautiful family. I have a blended family of that is a lot of people, and these people love each other and they care about you. And in my jujitsu community, I have those people as well. They are on my side and want me to be well and happy and progressing. And that just means a lot, I think, in a person's life. Well, how about you? I'll turn the same questions to you.
Yeah, as far as competition, I go both ways, like on whether the competition is for someone or not, because I think about like longevity,
Yes.
like competition make or break someone, because everybody has this perception that like I need to compete in order to continue jitsu, and then they don't like competition, so they lose their desire to even want to train. It can go so many different ways. But I feel like competition, like if someone was neutral about it and they asked me, I would tell them to compete because competition puts us in a vulnerable kind of state. Like we invite people to come watch us. We create these expectations that I don't believe are bad. Because man, like sometimes I go there, people are, you put too much expectation on yourself or this. But man, it's good to set a standard, a high standard for yourself.
That's right.
But along with hard work, along with passion and all that stuff, right? Man, there have been times like after doing competition, you get emotional. You're like, man, when is the win going to come after all this work? But I think expectation, when it's supported by hard work, teammates that are supporting you, love and passion, I think it's okay. But as far as it being for someone or not, I think that's really subjective onto the person because it depends on the person. But I think as far as having goals with jujitsu is so important, right? Some people like, for instance, let's say you have someone who's just maybe not happy with their weight or maybe like the way they feel. Their goal is to show up all the time, to get good and to not miss a day. Like general goals with jiu-jitsu are so important. I think people create these either goals that are not really realistic or what is it that they have no goals and there's nothing to support it. So I think that's why some people lose their interest in jiu-jitsu. Some people have their personal life not together and they're doing too much jiu-jitsu because for whatever reason, and then those two conflict. Right. So I think it's very subjective, right? Like as far as if you were a neutral person was to ask me, I'd say compete because you're going to be in that vulnerable state where you can see where you're at. You can be inspired. Like, man, like I did better than I thought I could. Maybe next time I'll try to do this. This is for a regular practitioner. But if you're like super passionate and competitive spirit, you have to compete as much as you can.
Right.
Because I've lost more than I've won. But obviously on my Instagram, I highlight all the win because at the end of the day,
of course.
At the end of the day, like we all want to be winners. And I think we need to work hard and sometimes we need those L's or we need to be around people that inspire us and make us like feel like we are winners.
Yeah.
You know,
There's nothing but W's except for those phenoms, which is it's possible. If you don't have those, then you haven't put yourself in a truly competitive environment. Because in a truly
yeah,
competitive environment and you're among equals, there a lot depends on the day. And there are sometimes like you hit your flow at that moment. And it doesn't mean that somebody else could have hit their flow 20 seconds before, and now you don't have your opportunity. And that notion of competition, both revealing something about somebody's character, like you didn't know you had that in you, and
mm,
then shaping your character to know that,
yeah,
oh, you know what, I could do something that I didn't know I could do. And then from then on, you carry with you the confidence that, hey, look, this is in me. And again, belonging in the next levels of the bigger and bigger stages. Well, do you have something that stands out as if I say, what's your most memorable role or
yeah.
grind or
So there's two that come to mind. There is one like I lost in the first round, and it was more of spark because I was like a purple belt, and I just got my purple belt from Andre Galval. And I remember too, I was actually in the same division as my brother this tournament. And we
oh,
were
which
talking
means
about it. We were like, man, like what's gonna happen if we need finals? I ended up losing in the first round. And it was a little bit of an intimate conversation, but Beanie, I was like Angelica or Andre's wife came up to me and she's like, ah, like you seem like off, like everything okay, man. When she just wanted to like impress onto me that, man, she had to know. I think she was right. Man, you don't believe in yourself. You need to believe in yourself. Man, Andre wouldn't have promoted you or
yeah,
if
right.
he didn't believe in you. Man, you have to focus on believing in yourself. And man, at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. But having someone tell me that they believed in me was really important. He was talking earlier,
Sure.
like that really sparked in my mind. And ever since then, I really just was really driven by, man, people around me support me. And that was enough drive to believe into myself. And man, I did really good at purple belt. Like I won like national or what did I mean at purple belt? I won a bunch of opens, but like I would get a lot of like second places. I got like second and third at Masters Worlds,
Mhm.
but I won Abu Dhabi Grand Slam, like stuff like that. When I was a brown belt, like my most memorable, there's two of them that were very memorable. Pan Am's was amazing because I've always wanted to win Pan Am's because my brother won it twice yesterday. And man, I just was like competing. I was like trying to train, do my personal life, and winning Pan Am's was for me because Masters World wasn't really that big at that time. But I was like, man, if I win Pan Am's, man, I'm gonna win Pan Am's. So,
Right, right.
you know, so I won Pan Am's, and that was real special. I cut like 15 pounds to win that one
Wow.
as well as like trained hard. But when I won, probably the most memorable is winning Nogi Worlds.
Okay.
I won Nogi Worlds as a brown belt, and I had all my friends and family there. And man, it was the lowest weight I've ever been. I think I was like 134 pounds and
Oh my gosh.
skinny and just, I cut 16 or 17 pounds, but I was into winning. I was like, dude, once I stepped on that still did that weight, I was like, man, this, I was confident. And so made through, I won Nogi Worlds, and I got my black the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah. How
so
many
that was really special because it really just felt, I really felt connected with my teammates. I felt like it was like a very euphoric feeling, like something that I was very like, man, I wanted to always be a world champion. I hadn't won it at black, but winning at brown belt was pretty special and having family, friends, and then being awarded my black belt the next day because there's a little twist that was connected to that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
So I was actually like, they were talking about my promotion for black
Okay.
belt. A lot of guys are getting promoted. And there was a discussion of getting mine and it was brought to my brother's attention. But my brother was like, they're like, like we're thinking like kind of win time and place. And my brother told him, he said, wait, I think he really he wants to, like, and my brother too, my brother's for him to step up and say, "Hey, I think you should do this as opposed to whatever you guys want to do."
Yeah.
He's confident enough to be like, I think this guy wants to win Nogi World. I know he wants to win Nogi World. So man, let's see if he wins Nogi World and to be able to win it. And man, and he came up to me, told me, I was like, why are you telling that? Like, I have all this expression. But I just didn't care. Honestly, at that point, I was in the zone and competition that was my means for growth.
Yes. Right.
And that was my means. Doesn't have to be everybody's means, but that was my thing. I was like, man, like,
Sure.
My brother was very successful. My brother won Masters Worlds a few months earlier. So, I mean, I got to win a world title.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having that, him as an example to aspire for someone who's able to overcome losses and to be able to be successful was always inspiration because I obviously needed that. I want to be inspired. So that was probably my most memorable.
Yeah, those are great stories. Those are all great stories. If you still have time, my last question for you guys is, and I know you have a lot of these stories, but if you were to pick out jujitsu's impact on somebody, either a student or somebody you've observed, I always like to hear what's happened out there for how jujitsu's been transformational for people, because everybody's got like some amazing story to tell me.
Yeah, I was a coach for many years, our jiu-jitsu, and like now we have our academy. And of course, it's always, man, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I had there and all the students. Something special about like your academy because everything you put into it. And I have so much respect for my professors because now when you see like what it takes to first just be able to work with the family member and then be able to do all the things that it takes to start the academy and bring people into the mat, man, it's so much. And so it's special. It feels more special when it's your academy that you put so much into getting people to come to through your doors.
Makes sense.
So I would say I would try to pick someone from our academy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put anybody on blast, but there's this girl, I was actually just talking about her the other day. And she was like, I think really shy. And then I remember asking my brother, 'cause there's one night I wasn't there and I try to take care of the prospects or leads that come in and try to class. I said, how was this person? And on that date, my brother was like, oh, she seemed like not too much into it or whatever, but who knows? And then eventually, so I called the person back and I said, hey, why don't you try one more free class?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this girl took the class. And now, and she really liked it. So she took her, we had a nice deal going on where I said, hey, just try out for at least 1 month. You don't like it, we'll stop your membership right after, I promise. Okay. But now I see like this girl, she's just the other day, I saw on Instagram, all these friends from the academy. And I had talked to her not too long ago and she had said something about moving from Korea, then Hawaii for a little bit. And honestly, like all my roommates moved away and I was feeling really lonely, but now some of my best friends are on the academy. Well, like, wow, man. So this effort that we did are creating like these relationships that could be like a lifelong relationship.
That's right. Yeah.
So even though it's nothing like, oh, this person became a champion or this person is actually really good at jujitsu. See her so happy and so connected with the community and she gained like really nice friends and someone who you wouldn't think that would be into jujitsu.
Yeah.
And she's still really shy with the dance. You think that about how you're so good.
Yeah. We all know that moment of winning anything is a moment, but a community of people that's going to be with you that lasts potentially forever. And if you're going to pick, I would forego, okay, that moment of victory for a group of people that are going to be with that person. Yeah. It's a lovely story, Ben.
It's hard to single out, bro, because there's
no, I appreciate
like,
that. Yeah.
some great, man, so many great people and like amazing students and friends that we gained over the years with our
Without a doubt.
But this one just stands out because it's
That's
it's
awesome.
like it's unexpected. Wow, dude, it's amazing what a little effort goes. And you never know who you're impacting and what lives you're feeding or what connections you're creating.
That's right. Yeah. Echo throughout her whole life.
So that's tomorrow.
Yeah, I have a few, but there's one like in particular where there's a girl like trains at our gym, and I think too like she had something similar to me where she'd see winning as like the goal, and it was very hard on her. So being able to help her through that and see her change her view and to see her like excited about jujitsu is everything. And I think that's my goal is like to get people excited. And man, I talk about this like in my classes. I had this nice conversation with Andre one time and he came to my gym and then we had a really long conversation afterwards. And he says, man, like, don't be afraid to share like how you feel or your expectations out of the gym. And one of the things that was important for me was to tell people like to always look at jujitsu as like, we have this 1 hour and we have the other 23 away from the gym and whatever. We have these 2 hours and the other 22 away from the gym. What we do outside of the gym connects with what we do inside.
That's right.
And when we come into this gym, it's like almost like that leave your guns at the door. So it's I try to encourage people to like look at this place as like a place of passion, like a place that you're going to enjoy. You're going to don't look at jujitsu as this stressful thing. And the only reason I say it is because jujitsu were very stressful because I
Yes.
looked at jujitsu kind of I wouldn't necessarily say the wrong way, but it definitely put me in a lot of stress because I was like looking at competition. The way I did in competition was where my jujitsu was at.
Right.
But I think it's important for people to have this, to bring positive energy to the gym, to bring this like growth mindset, to believe in what your instructors are doing. And that's going to create more, it's going to create your mood of jujitsu. So it doesn't always come from the instructor. Of course, like being an instructor, like as our job, and we want to maintain our group, but it creates more of a vibe if we bring this positive energy to the gym. So being able to share that and encourage people to challenge themselves into what they do off the mats will only help how they are on the
On
mats.
the match,
So no,
without a doubt. I appreciate those are such great stories. And Professor Lucas and I started the podcast with the intent of saying, if you started jujitsu, we don't want you to give up because the vocabulary that you develop physically does translate into vocabulary between you and the world. And the deeper your jujitsu vocabulary is, we always feel like that's going to take you off the mat. You'll be a different person for that time. And then for those who, like the young lady from Korea, they may not think this is for them, but they have an interest in that to allow the interest to take them on the mats rather than to be afraid. My first year of jujitsu, every session began with fear that I would get hurt. Would I be able to control the circumstances of my own experience such that I couldn't afford to be hurt in the rest of my life? So I loved being there, but I also had a lack of confidence that I would be okay. And then over time, I have such a community that I trust that I know that I could go in and roll hard, try to grow, and still allow for how far do I want to take it on any given day. Thanks for those stories and your examples of people that have integrated jujitsu into your life in a way that it touches a lot of different things. And I was talking to Professor Mikkelsen from Estonia, of all things, and look, let's not romanticize the community. Like we're all people and there's certainly the good and bad that comes with it. And although that's impossible to argue with, right? Because we are just human beings and we're all doing our best. I do feel like the art does speak to bringing out the best in people. And to hear that you guys have done that for such a long time with so many people, it's an honor to have this conversation. So thanks for spending time today with us, and maybe you'll come back another time and
yeah, thank you.
continue the conversation. This was great.
Thank you for having us, man. Like, it's honestly, it was like an honor to see like now. It was like, oh wow, like, that's cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So thank you so much for even considering us. And
The honor's all
we,
mine.
we love to share like our experience. And man, honestly, it's cool to hear about yours as well.
That's gracious. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pete. If you're ever in what area, where do you train at?
I'm in like Chandler, Arizona, but Santa Monica is about my favorite part of the world. And so I'm out to see you. I'll be out to see you guys at some point in time.
See, man.
You're more than welcome to come.
I would so love that. Yeah, I would so love that. And I spend a couple of weeks in Newport every year. That's not that far a drive up to see you guys. So I'll look forward to coming and learning some stuff out by you guys. That'd be
Yes,
great.
sir. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.